All right, guys. So, very good. We're going to get started right now. As you can tell, my voice is hoarse, but coming to the stage is a stallion in the pickup game. I'm not afraid to say that. I'm going to welcome, second year in a row, all the way from California, the dapper and indiscriminative DJ Fuji. Give him your undivided attention. Give it up.
You guys hear me in the back? How's the mic?
Good.
Good? Awesome. How you guys doing?
Great.
I need a little more energy. I thought we did this last year. How you guys doing?
Great.
Outstanding. All right, so today we're going to talk, like yesterday, last year, right? 2009. We talked a whole lot about fundamentals. We talked about those things that lie the foundation for everything that game is built upon. And those things that make the difference no matter who you are, no matter what your skill set is, no matter where you're interacting, where you're sarging. Those fundamentals are absolutely critical. And so last year, we covered things like the DATE model, okay? Some of you guys will never forget that because you missed a free boot camp. Okay, discipline, training, execution. Okay, we talked about the fundamentals. We talked about eliminating flakes, completely eliminating the phone flakes, right? The no texting back, the no callback. We talked about not ejecting, pushing your comfort zone, why that's important, and qualification. So this year, we're going to change it up a little bit. This year, I'm going to go from the what, which is what I taught you guys last year. I taught you guys the what, and this year, I'm going to teach you guys the how. So one of the things when I went through my speech from last year, and I said, you know what, what am I going to speak on this year? And I went through and I watched my whole speech again, and what became very apparent to me over the course of a year is that I taught you guys last year all of the concepts and all of the things that are very important, but I never taught you guys how to implement it, how to do it. And so the theme this year is action. Everything about this year is going to be action. So actually, instead of me lecturing to you guys, what you're going to notice is that a large part of what we're going to talk about today is going to be interactive. So hopefully you guys have notes, because a lot of this stuff is going to be me bringing you guys to the stage. It's going to be you guys writing things down. It's going to be you guys creating action plans. Because gentlemen, the name of the game in all of this and being successful, whether it's in life, whether it's in pickup, whether it's in finance or anything else, the name of the game is action. And the men who take action are successful. And the men who don't are not. Okay, it's a pretty simple concept. All right, so we're going to define and implement all of these fundamentals that we talked about last year. So all those concepts that we discussed, now we're going to show how to do it, and we're going to put a date on it. We're actually going to create an action plan to actually get that stuff done. Okay, and what we're going to look at is holistic growth. We're going to look at things that improve not only your game, but your life in general, that affect all these aspects, because everything kind of is intertwined. Right? So let's move on. I'm going to move fairly quick, guys, because I have a lot of stuff to cover, and I'm going to try to get some time in for questions at the end. Quick ground rules. First things first, same as last year. If you guys have questions, please write those down and ask at the end. Periodically, I'll poll the audience, and I'll ask, do you guys have any questions? Does that make sense? Okay, especially when I'm talking about something that's a kind of a complicated topic. When I ask that question, that's your cue to ask any questions you guys have. Okay. Second thing, for the next hour and a half, I want you guys to forget everything that you know about game. Everything that you have read, everything that you've watched on DVDs, everything you've listened to, everything you know from the field, forget everything, okay, for the next hour and a half. Because I want you guys to keep an open mind. I want you guys to absorb all this information. That way, when you get out in field, you can apply it. All right? Participation, like we said, okay, this is going to be very, very interactive. So I want you guys max participation. Right? This is not going to be a one-way lecture. This is not going to be me up here running my mouth. Right? This is going to be a two-way thing. And lastly, for those of you guys watching at home, we're going to be doing a lot of drills. We're going to be doing a lot of very interactive things. I don't want you guys, the same as everyone else here, I don't want you guys to be passive listeners. I don't want you guys to watch this as entertainment. I want you guys to take out a sheet of paper, just like all these guys are here. I want you guys to take out a pen, and I want you guys to follow along. And if you're here, and if you're watching with a wing, or you're watching with a friend of yours, do the drills. Pause the tape, do the drills, just like these guys are going to do here. Okay, the name of the game is action, and those of you guys at home, you're no exception. The men who take action, those are the guys that are going to be successful. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so we talked about the DATE model last time, right? This idea of discipline, training, and execution. right? And why that's so important. Those are the three critical concepts that if you don't implement them, you're just not successful. Unless you bring an incredible amount of talent to the table, they're just one of those things that you either, if you have it, you're successful, and if you don't, you're not, okay? Now, we're gonna revisit this concept because I've added some more things. And just like all of you guys are in this growth process, right? You're in this process of getting better at pickup. You're in this process of improving yourself, right? Of working on all aspects. So too am I with coaching. And one of the things that I do periodically is I go back through and I make sure I haven't missed things. I make sure that my things are clear and they're concise. And what I've realized is that that A that was formerly lowercase is now uppercase, because now we have a definition for that A. So let's get into this. Okay, so the first one, D, discipline. Who can define that for me? No one wants to take a chance? I'm gonna start calling on people. All right, you in the front.
Okay. Discipline is having the structure in place and the willingness to follow through with your action plan.
Okay, close, close. Discipline is doing what's necessary, even when you don't want to. It's making the tough decisions, right? Discipline is courage, right? So with discipline, what we're gonna do is, what I want you guys to do, instead of just understanding the concept of discipline and say, oh yeah, that's really cool, like I get it, it's a guy doing push-ups, yeah, whatever, next slide, okay? Now, we're gonna have action plans, okay? I want all you guys to write down one example where you lack discipline. And we all have that, no matter who you are. And it could be in pickup, it could be in your workouts, it could be in waking up early, whatever the case is. I want you guys to write down an instance where you lack discipline. Okay, where you can improve that level of discipline and where that's impacting your life. When you guys are done with that, look up. Okay, green shirt. What's your one thing for discipline?
I don't always do my schoolwork on time.
Okay, gotcha. Purple, discipline.
I am trying to learn how to play poker online, and I fucking play too many hands.
You do what?
I play too many hands. I need to be more disciplined about what hands I play.
Okay, gotcha. Blue shirt, right there, center.
Procrastination.
We'll be more specific. Procrastination with what? Okay, gotcha. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna find a solution. So what I want you guys to do now is I want you to write down how you're gonna fix that. Let's brainstorm a solution. Let's think outside the box. So all those things that you guys wrote down, I want you now to come up with a solution. And not only that, but I want you to write when you're going to fix that. And some of these things don't seem to have a definite answer, and that's why we're doing this drill. Because I want you guys to think outside the box. I want you to not think, I can't do it, right? Or this is an obstacle. I want you to think, how can I solve this? Okay, so for that one thing with discipline, find the solution. Okay, do that now and look up when you're done. White shirt, what you got?
I'm going to start only buying healthy foods.
Okay, what's the discipline part?
The diet.
Okay. And the solution is you're going to start buying healthy foods.
Yeah.
Okay. Be a little bit more specific. When are you going to do that, and how are you going to do that?
Probably start the school year starts, and not going to buy any junk foods, I guess.
Okay. So what's the difference between a guy who has a goal and he goes after it and he achieves that, and the guy who has the goal but it's just doesn't really work, right? That action never really pans through, is specificity, how specific his goals are, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to give me a very, very specific timeline and a very specific action plan of how you're going to do that, okay? So what's preventing you from doing that right now?
Well, basically, I'm saving up money for the school year.
Okay,
I live with my parents, and they don't eat, the time of diet.
okay. So what could you do in your current situation right now? What could you do to change that?
I could probably stop eating what they make and kind of work with them a little bit. Like they may not buy the best foods, but I could stop eating the grains.
Okay,
Maybe if they cook me, eat that, and
right.
do that grains.
What about asking them?
I've tried that already.
And they're just like, no, I'm just going to buy junk food?
Yeah, well, they're pretty set in their ways, I guess.
Okay. Well, like you said, you can pick and choose, right? And then when you get to that school year, now you can start implementing that.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you have a timeline When you know when you're going to do something, all of a sudden this becomes real. It's, oh, this is actually something I'm working towards, not some random goal in the clouds. That random goal in the clouds is not called a goal, by the way. It's called a fantasy, meaning it doesn't actually happen. Okay? So what we're going to do is take all of these things today, and we're going to assign timelines to them. We're going to give you guys the when, so that you have something to work towards. Okay, the next thing, after D, that elusive A, right? That A is aggressiveness. And it's the one thing that I was thinking it, and I was like, there's one thing missing on that DTD model. Because every natural, he's got the D, the T, and the E, but there's something missing. There's something else that's going on, and that something else is aggressiveness. And you'll notice anyone who's good at anything, whether that be pickup, whether that be life, whether that be any skill, they are aggressive. They go after what they want. They go after their goals. They achieve their goals. Okay, so in aggression or in aggressiveness, what I want you guys to do is, again, find a specific area where you guys should be more aggressive. And again, that could be in pickup, that could be in life, that could be in finances, that could be in your job. Okay, write that down now and look up when you're done. Okay, in the back, way in the back, right? What's your specific area? Going out more. Okay. I want you to be more specific in terms of aggression. Going out more could be discipline, really, right? So in terms of being aggressive, how would you specify that? Okay, are you going out 4 nights right now? Okay, so going from 4 to 7, is that your biggest sticking point in terms of aggressiveness? In other words, if you looked at your whole life and said, where am I lacking aggressiveness in my whole life? Is the biggest sticking point that you're only going out 4 nights a week? It's not, right? So what is that? Okay, I want you to be specific. Taking charge in your life, that's very general. That's very vague. Okay, specifically, what is that? Finding the right career. Okay, even more specific than that. Okay, aggressively finding your passion. Now we're on to something, right? Okay, now stage 2, how and when do you fix that? I want you to tell me how and when we're going to fix that. Okay. Well, you got to find the how first, right? Because what if the how is to travel the world and do different things in different countries, but you're broke right now? Then that when all of a sudden changes, doesn't it? Okay, so give me the how first, then we'll give me the when. Okay, I want you to be more specific in terms of, like you're saying, experiment with different jobs, okay? I want you to be more specific. How are you going to go about finding that passion? What are you going to do? Are you just going to quit your job every month? Like, I'm done with McDonald's, I'm going to go to Starbucks. Done with that, I'm going to go to Save-On. Okay, now what fields are you looking for? Do you have any idea? Okay. What other way could you go about finding information about traveling or marketing and the jobs related to that, and maybe getting experience in those industries? What else could you do to make that happen? What's that? Internships? What else? Talking to experts? What else? What about volunteering? Volunteering, right? Going around and volunteering your time, or going to volunteer organizations. See, a lot of us have these goals. A lot of us have these ideas of things we want to do, and they're very vague. These broad ideas of like, oh, I want to be wealthy, or I want to be successful at pickup, or I want to be blah, blah, blah. And the reason we do this drill is because no matter what we're talking about, if we're talking about escalation, if we're talking about qualification, if we're talking about sexuality, if we're talking about pickup as a whole, none of this stuff actually changes. This same concept of figuring out what your goals are, being very specific about your goals, and then figuring out the how and the when, and the when. That stuff is what makes you successful, okay? Okay, blue bracelets, V-neck. Okay, what is your thing for aggression?
I should be learning more about my field. I'm a web designer,
Okay,
and I need to be learning more about like the new technologies and stuff, like keeping up with trends.
okay. Is that a big thing holding you back right now?
Yes, it's limiting to me to getting the job that I kind of want to get.
Okay, all right. Now give me the how and give me the when.
The how, basically just going to tutorial sites, pick out an hour a day,
Okay,
and just go through the tutorials,
right,
and I can start doing that, one day.
okay. What else could you do?
Take classes.
Bingo. What else could you do? I was a web developer, so I know your industry very well.
Yeah, I guess just kind of experiment.
Well,
Start.
sort of. That's part of the process, right? But what else could you do? What would you do if you wanted to learn, say, history?
Go buy some books.
Yeah. Right? Go buy some books, take some classes, get some training, learn from people better than you, go on the forums, right? Experiment. All of those things, those are all the how. Okay, now when are we going to start doing that?
Monday.
Not when can we, when are you going to do that?
Monday.
Are you going to be back on Monday?
I live here.
Okay, gotcha. So is Monday feasible for you then?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want you to do then is write down that date. Write down Monday, write the date, and commit to that. It applies to all you guys. Commit to those dates. I will do this on this date. And don't take all of these things, put them on the same day, because you know you as well as I do. You guys aren't going to get to it. Okay, space out your stuff. But when you have goals, specify the how and specify the when, and then we go after it. Make sense? Yes, no, fuck you, something?
Yes.
Good. All right. Okay, so let's talk about training now, right? So training, again, training encompasses, in pickup, training encompasses actually taking real training from a professional. But it also encompasses working with guys better than you. It encompasses going out with guys better than you, going out with natural friends, learning from everybody around you, even if the people that you're learning from may not necessarily be as good as you are. Learning from all these different resources. That's the training process, as well as cross-training into different areas. Guess what? If we're doing pickup, right? If we're doing cold approach, we're meeting women, and you go out and you take a stand-up comedy class, or you take an improv class, right? It doesn't directly correlate to pickup, but guess what? That helps you more than a lot of classes that you even take in pickup, right? All these different things kind of intertwine together, all right? So in terms of training, everybody kind of has a lot, just like anything else, everyone kind of has a lot of the same habits. And I would guarantee that all of us have a sticking point in training. Okay, now that may be that you haven't taken a workshop or a class on something that you need to get better at. That may be that you realize you have certain sticking points and you haven't directly addressed them. You've hoped that they're going to solve themselves. Whatever the case is, what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to write down the reason that you guys have in your head for why you haven't taken that training, why you haven't done that, why you haven't gone out to seek out those naturals, to go out with those guys, to learn from those guys, to hang out with guys that are better than you. Whatever the case may be, I want you to take that concept of training, and I want you guys to write down one reason that's been holding you back. It could be money, it could be time, it could be I don't know any naturals. Whatever the case is, I want you to write down that reason. Do that now, and look up when you're done. Okay, what do you got, man? Green shirt.
I wrote that I'm just focused on other areas in my life right now.
Okay. Like what?
But, well, like I'm really focused on getting kind of the website for my business up, and I haven't gotten. I need training to do certain things about it. So.
Okay.
I feel like I was focused on the other thing.
Okay, so you need training for the website then?
No. I need through the website. I'm doing some coaching. I'd like to get some training to become a better coach.
Okay. So what are your priorities then? If your priorities aren't coaching, right? Or if your priorities aren't doing that, then find out what your priorities are, and then find out, could coaching help me? Or could some sort of training? It doesn't have to be coaching. Could that training help me? What area would that be? Okay. So in order to do that, right, what is the actual reason that you're saying, oh, I can't take training? Now, maybe this is training on whatever, internet marketing. Okay, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, then define that. We got to define that, right? Because if it's just this broad concept of like, oh yeah, like, I need to know how to do that,
Well, I mean,
then we don't know how to go about it.
Sorry.
Okay.
I think I am getting that training. I'm talking to my cousin who's doing stuff. I'm taking some classes on it. So.
Okay, so in that specific field, are you maximizing the amount of training to make you effective? And if you are, then what's the next thing that you're not? We're looking for sticking points, right? We're looking for things that are holding us back. Again, this could be a game, this could be internet marketing, this could be job, could be anything. Okay, so in what area is a lack of training holding you back sticking point-wise?
Coaching. There would be. I need to get better at coaching people.
Okay, at coaching people, right?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so now you have that sticking point, right? That reason, okay? Now give me the how and the when. What's the actual, okay, so you said you need coaching, right? But what's the reason you haven't been doing it?
I'm
Focusing on other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now what's the solution to that?
I can plan it later. I can do, I can say I'll take a week to do this, a week to do that. I can break it down,
Okay,
separate it out.
good. Now you have the solution. Now when? When could you start doing that?
As soon as I get home, day I get home, I can do it.
Okay. Now, will you do it? That's the question, right? The $1,000,000 question. Okay, good. Okay, third row back, Navy, Polo. Okay, all right. Let's see. Center right there. White shirt. Sunglasses, yep, you. Okay, training. One reason for not taking training. What's that? It doesn't matter. What I'm looking right here for is excuses. Right? What we're going to do is we're going to bust through limiting beliefs. We're going to bust through obstacles. We're going to bust through excuses. Okay. Right? So we're looking at areas in which training can improve your life. Like I said, that could be pickup. That could be your career. That could be a skill that you want to learn. It could be a musical instrument. But we're looking for areas in which training can improve your life. And what most people don't do is most people either don't think about it, they don't acknowledge it, they don't go after it, or they let things get in their way. They let obstacles get in their way. They say, oh, well, I can't do this because blah, 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 right? Money's a big thing, right? Especially in what we do, money's a big deal. It's like, that's expensive training. It's like a lot of people don't have that kind of money, right? A lot of people, we don't have an extra $2,000, $3,000. I'll tell you what, Steve, who's sitting right here, El Topo, that guy slept in his car to take training. He said, you know what, I only have enough money to take training. I don't have enough money for a hotel or anything else, so I'll sleep in my car to make that happen. Okay, what did he do differently than the other 3 guys, the other 10 guys who said, oh, I don't have the money. I don't have the money, and so I guess I can't take training. He made it happen. He didn't let those excuses get him down. He didn't let those things hold him back. And what we'll find is that those excuses are the same things that hold us back in field, and they're the same things that hold us back in business, in our career, and everything else that we want to do. So by looking at the excuses that our head comes up with, that our mind comes up with, and being able to get around them, being able to overcome them, we train ourselves, we train our brains and our thought process to not allow those excuses to hold us back. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so in the center again. All right, so what area is training holding you back, or lack thereof? You guess? Or you do want to? You do? Okay. So in what way would training help you with that? Do you need training to enter law school? Like, do you need the training to take a test to get in, or you tell me? I'm not a lawyer. Okay. So do you think training would help you do that? I don't think so. I'm not buying it. Okay, but do you think that's an area in which you need to improve? I want you to think of areas in which you need to improve. Yeah. We'll come back to you. Okay. Okay, black shirt, right there. Area in which you can improve.
Well, one of the reasons I'm here is to improve on my game, my pickup.
Okay.
And I am taking training this weekend, but where I'm not far from training is back home in Houston, going out enough with my buddies who are also interested in this and giving each other feedback. And the reason I don't do that kind of training is because I work too much. And
Okay.
it's a matter of prioritizing and scheduling properly so that I can get out at night with my buddies.
Okay.
And debrief with them and stuff while still getting to work.
Okay. Now, what's the solution? What's the how and the when? How do you get around that?
Oh, like I was just saying, it's going to be a matter of scheduling, picking out the days when I'm actually going to consistently go out with my buddies, and making sure that, either I get ahead at work, the days before, so that I can get in a little later in the morning,
Okay.
things like that.
What time do you work? What's your hours?
I can get in anywhere from 8 to 10.
So then what's been holding you back right now?
Because there's just so much to do,
Okay.
so I try to get in early, but it's not like I have a set time to be there.
Okay.
So I could schedule it differently.
So exactly. You could literally, when you get back, as soon as you get back, start implementing this, right? Okay, so the when is basically immediately as soon as you get back, right? Now, will you do that? $1 million question. Okay, good, solid. All right, let's move on. Okay, execution, right? When you're in the moment, actually executing, pulling the trigger. Okay, we can prepare, we can be aggressive, we can get the training, but in the moment, can you pull the trigger? Can you make it happen? That's execution. Okay, and like all of these other facets that we covered, execution is again one of those things where there are a lot of us, all of us, have sticking points in execution. Okay, so in execution, one way you fail to execute in anything, write that down, look up when you're done. What do you got, man?
I guess what it comes down to, because for the training part,
Okay.
I was thinking there's money and logistics and all that, but what it comes down to is just not being aggressive. Because if you're aggressive and to execute, just not being aggressive is what's holding back. If I really want something, I'll make it happen. I mean, people have done worse things with lesser resources. So.
You can be really aggressive, and then when the moment of truth comes, fail, right?
But if I don't even get to that point, I guess.
Correct. But in what area do you fail to execute?
Well, I think being aggressive, that's my execution.
Okay, I want you to be more specific. I want a very specific area in where you're not executing.
To a girl, right?
Okay.
And the time when I need to be aggressive, when I need to whatever it is.
To escalate?
At that point, to escalate. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not aggressive enough. I want something, but I don't go for it.
Okay, why?
It's, I don't know, maybe it just comes down to just the fundamentals, I don't know, maybe there's self issues or whatever it is.
Okay, this is good. This is exactly why we're here. Okay? So what I'm trying to get at is the root cause. Because if you don't know what the cause is, you can't fix it, right? So what's the root cause of this problem? This failure to execute.
Yeah,
Is it not knowing what to do? Is it not knowing when or how to do something? Is it being afraid?
I think that's what I came here to figure out, basically.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it could come down to just being, I don't know enough about pickup, but I mean, it definitely, there has to be some element to self-confidence. Because I can't answer everything with just learning more stuff.
Correct. I'll tell you what it is, okay? I'll tell you with an almost certain degree of accuracy what it is. It's fear. It's fear, right? Just like all of us experience when we're approaching, all of us experience when a set's going really well, and we don't want to mess it up, we don't want to lose it. Okay, it's just like anything else, all that is fear. Okay, so you have to learn to recognize that. And you have to learn to see fear in a different light. Okay? Well, okay, actually break down. What are you actually afraid of?
Like when I'm in this room now, with not in front of a girl, whatever.
Correct.
What it comes down to is there's nothing to be afraid of.
No, not logically, right? When you're feeling that, what do you think you're afraid of? For example, okay, you go out and you see, say, two gorgeous women, and you're gonna go talk to them. I don't care who you are, if you are sane, you are afraid. Because I'm afraid, the other coaches are afraid, you guys are afraid, it happens. Okay? And no amount of training, fixes that. You just learn to manage it. Now, what if we break that down? What are we actually afraid of? Now, logically, there's nothing really to be afraid of. But emotionally, what are we afraid of? We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of the damage to the ego, right? We're afraid of our self-concept being different from what we think it is. Okay? We're afraid of all of these different things. We're afraid of the social proof impact. We're afraid that people will see that and they will look at us differently. Those are all actual feelings and emotions. And when we can narrow down why we're afraid, we can then take steps to eliminate that or to fix that, okay? So what I want to know from you is, what are you afraid of in terms of, say, escalation?
Like, I'm trying to figure out if it's all those things that you said, being afraid of rejection, but like, I think for me it's just the emotion of fear, and it's never really attached to something. It's just I'm fearful right now.
Okay. I want you to think about what, though? What are you afraid of? In other words, if this doesn't work out, what are you afraid is going to happen? Let me take a shot in the dark. If this doesn't work out, are you afraid that she's not going to like you anymore?
I like to think that I don't care. It's just the fear. It just attacks and it's just there.
Correct.
So I'm not afraid of anything. I'm just afraid.
Correct.
I can be there and I'll make that analysis and I'll be like, there is nothing to be afraid of. I don't know her.
Right, but we're not looking logically, okay? Because logically, there actually is nothing.
Right.
But emotionally, like what we have to do is we have to break down that emotion of fear. Like I said, if it's an approach, a lot of times it's that validation, or it's the possibility that we're going to break that validation, right? We're not going to get that validation, right? Or our peers are going to look at us differently, okay? So let's give a specific example. Let's say escalation, right? Let's say going for the kiss. Would you say that's an area in which you're not escalating? Okay, so when you're in the moment and you know she's down for that, and you know I'm really close, all I have to do is go for it, right? So we're eliminating the other variables. We're eliminating anything to do with I don't know how to do it, I'm not close enough, anything. You're right there. It's all you have to do is reach out and take it, but you're afraid, okay? What are you afraid of?
I guess, it just backfiring and rejection.
That's not going to work, right? That it's not going to work, right? Okay, so if we're afraid that it's not going to work and that you're going to get, say, quote-unquote, rejected, okay? What we're going to do, and we're going to talk about this a little bit in Inner Game, okay? The solution here is to look at that differently, to reframe, to change your point of view. Because what you see from your point of view is if she doesn't kiss me back, or she's not ready, or whatever the case is, and I get quote-unquote rejected, in your head is playing a mini movie. And that movie is, she's going to reject me, she's going to run out the door, and I'm going to look like an idiot, and I'm going to feel really bad. Okay? In reality, what happens in the real world is when you go for it, and say, for example, she's not ready, or it's not the right time, or her friends are looking, or whatever mistake you're making, and she's not ready for that. What really happens is you continue to move forward. If you go to kiss a girl, and she walks away from you, she was going to walk away in the next minute anyway. You do not blow yourself out with escalation. Like a lot of guys say, a woman will always forgive you for being a man and for going for it and being a little bit miscalibrated. A woman will not forgive you for not being a man, for not going after what you want. Does that make sense? So next time you're in that situation, I want you to realize that if you go for it, the worst possible thing that could happen is she's not down and you got to try again later. If she walks away, you are going to lose it anyway. She was going to walk away in the next minute anyway. So you can't actually screw that up. There's actually no way to screw that up if you just go for it. Okay? A lot of guys think, I'm here. Let's say this is a scale, right? And a lot of guys think, I'm here, and I'm trying to go this way to escalate, right? I'm trying to get further ahead. And this is before the kiss, and this is what a lot of guys think. If I get the kiss, I'm here. I'm further ahead. If I don't get the kiss, if she rejects me, I'm here. That's what a lot of guys think. In reality, this is what it looks like. This is you before the kiss, about ready to go. If you get the kiss, you're here, okay? We understand that. If you don't get the kiss, you don't go that way. If you don't get the kiss, you're there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The key to that is when you don't get the kiss, you still move forward. You move forward because she realizes, you know what? You're a man. You're going after what you want. Maybe it's not the right time, but she can forgive you for that. You are going after what you want. That is an attractive quality. Whereas if you don't go for it at all, guess what you do then? Now you move back. That's the only time you move back. So when you guys are at that point of execution, take action. Anytime you're on the fence, right? Decision. I'm not sure which one to do. You always err on the side of action. Anytime it's like I'm not sure which one's going on, it usually means that decision is a decision of action or inaction. You always want to err on the side of action. Okay, last year, pretty much right after I did the 21 convention, I had an opportunity, if you guys saw, the JetBlue thing, right? $600, you can fly anywhere JetBlue flies. So I called my friends and I said, hey man, let's go do this. This is going to be a blast. We're going to fly around the world. We're going to see all these new things. And my friends all gave the typical response that I'm sure you guys have all gotten too. Oh yeah, let's do it, man. But they don't follow through. They don't actually do it. They're not closers, right? They're not people that do things. They're people that talk the talk, but they can't walk the walk. So what happened is we got down to the wire, and I said, you know what? We got to check for work. Well, we're not sure yet. It's really busy. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. If you guys would like to join me, that would be awesome. But if you can't for whatever reason, that's cool too. So what I ended up doing was basically traveling around through all of South America by myself, not knowing a lick of Spanish, not having a hotel to stay in, not knowing what the hell I was going to do. And I'll tell you what, from a guy who never traveled growing up, my parents never took me anywhere. I never left the country till about 4 years ago. From going from that place to going into a foreign country, not speaking the language, not knowing anything about the culture, that scares the crap out of you. But I had a decision to make, and that decision was action or inaction. Now, inaction would have been an easy decision to take. Oh, my friends don't want to go, it's expensive, blah, blah, blah. I could work on the business, there's so many things I could be doing. I'm just not going to do it. But I chose action. And you know what? That was the best decision I ever made. I grew more from that one trip, from facing my fears in that one trip, than I had grown in the last 10 years. When you are faced with action and inaction, you always err on the side of action. Nobody ever regrets action. You never say, oh, I should have taken that vacation. That's, in retrospect, I should have just stayed home. You always regret the inaction. You never regret the act. Even if it doesn't turn out right, at least you gave it your best shot. At least you can go to sleep at night knowing, you know what, I gave it my best shot. How many of us have been in field and we see that 10 and we say, oh, man, I should approach her, but she's talking to some guys. I don't know. How many of us have been there? All of us, right? Now, how many of us have been there when you don't approach because she's talking to the guy and you beat yourself up at home? The whole time you're home, you're like, man, I should have done it. Now, how many of us have actually approached, say you get blown out, and you go home and you're like, man, I shouldn't have approached. Fuck that. It was stupid. I shouldn't have even done it. Like, that was a waste of my time. I wanted my 5 minutes back. How many of us have ever done that? I've never done that. I have never regretted an approach that blew out. Never. We're talking thousands, 5,000, 6,000 approaches. Never regretted an approach. Because we don't regret action. We only regret inaction. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so one of the really, really common questions that I got last year was, okay, Fuji, so you're teaching the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals? What does that mean? What are the actual skills that I have to learn, and in what order? And I answered that question over and over and over, and I realized that was my fault for not explaining that, for not elaborating on that. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to give you a hierarchy of skills. For all of you guys that ever wondered, okay, these fundamentals, what do I do, and in what order? Do I learn this indirect first? Do I learn like the seduction stuff? Do I learn like the advanced comfort? Like when do I do this? How does this all fit together? Okay, this is the hierarchy. If we went from what you learn at the beginning to what you learn towards the end, approximately speaking, this is kind of the order in which you learn things. So first and foremost, body language and subcommunication, perhaps the most important thing in all of pickup. You can literally have nearly none of these other things, but have the body language and the subcommunication of an attractive man, and you can do pretty well. Which is why the first thing on that list is to nail down your subcoms, nail down your body language. And I realize that's also the hardest thing. How many of us have ever been in that in field with a drink here, right? And someone tells us to put the drink down, and what happens 2 seconds later when you get distracted? Boom, right back up again. We've all seen those wings, right? We've all had the wings. Oh, hey, man, you should put your drink down. He's like, okay, cool. Yeah, oh my God, dude, the other day, I was hanging out. Instantly comes back. Now, why is that? It's because it's a habit. Because you are used to doing that. Because you have done that so many times that it's muscle memory. Now, what happens if the muscle memory is leaning back, if the muscle memory is smiling, if the muscle memory is kino, is physical contact? If it's all good habits and not bad habits, all of a sudden we stop thinking about those things as well. Okay, our subcommunication and our body language, as we all know, communicate a whole lot more than the words we say. So focus on that first. Okay, second thing, social and conversational skills. A lot of people kind of overlook this. A lot of people say, oh, I talked to my mom the other day and I didn't stall out, so I'm good socially. I didn't run out of things to say, so I can have a conversation. When I say social and conversational skills, okay, what I mean is mastery over the conversation, being able to lead the conversation in directions you want it to go. How many of us have ever got stuck in a conversation about something factual, like computers or politics, or something that's not helping us? A lot of us, right? Definitely been there. Getting stuck in that one thing, I know this is not going anywhere. I know I need to take this someplace flirty, someplace sexual, but we're just having a really long discussion on politics. We've all been there, okay? That's conversation skills. That is social skills, okay? Don't make the mistake of thinking, as long as I can talk, I have those skills. Learn those things. We're going to cover those in a little bit. Teasing and humor, one of the most overlooked things in all of pickup. If you can't tease, if you can't generate humor, it's really hard to escalate, gentlemen. Very, very hard to escalate. Because one of the things that enables us to escalate, one of the things that enables us to throw out sexuality, to throw out the sexual frames, is that humor diffuses that. How many of us have ever tried to kino without humor? In the first part of the interaction, and you're up there, and you're talking, and Neil Strauss talks about this in the game. He talks about, they told me to kino, and I didn't know what to do. So Sin just put my hand on the girl while I was talking. And it was like a disembodied hand just on the girl, and we both felt the awkwardness. If you guys have ever tried that, that's exactly what it feels like. Someone tells you to kino, and you don't know how to kino. You don't know that kino accompanies humor. So you're talking about politics or whatever boring topic it is. Oh, yeah, it's really nice weather today. Yeah, it's really hot, and Orlando's, okay, that's weird. We can all feel that. A lot of us have been in field, we know that, okay? Humor, teasing allows us to get away with that. Sexuality, which this man right here is an absolute expert at. Sexuality is something that humor allows us to get away with, okay? It doesn't matter kind of where you are in the pickup. Humor and teasing are one of your biggest tools, so learn those things. If you're not naturally funny, then learn that sense of humor. Go to improv classes, learn stand-up comedy, go out and develop that. Okay, next thing, leading. Again, one of the most important things. If you don't know how to lead, and we're going to cover this, you don't know how to lead, you've got to learn that. If you can't lead the set, if you can't lead men, nobody's going to follow. And if a girl doesn't follow your lead, guess what? Nothing happens. Okay. Kino and physical contact, being able to touch people, being able to have physical contact and not have it be weird. Knowing when to touch, knowing how to touch, having the right vibe so that when you do it, it seems natural. We've all seen those natural friends that from day one, they're just very touchy-feely. They touch everyone and it seems totally normal. And we're stuck going, I don't know how the hell he's doing that because every time I touch, it feels weird to me. Okay, same thing, kino. All these things super, super important on this hierarchy of skills. Okay, flirting, showing interest. Again, all of these things have prerequisites, the one above that. That's why it's in this order. Okay, so once you learn humor, once you learn kino, now we learn to flirt. Flirting is what allows you to get the girls that aren't into you. A lot of guys think game is only getting the girls that are already attracted to you. That's not game in my opinion. Especially because there's not a lot of girls into 5'4" Asian guys. It's a lot easier when you're tall and good looking. When you're short and Asian, you don't get girls just rolling up, oh my God, I had this really big fantasy about 5'4" Asian guys. Doesn't happen, I'm sorry, okay? Doesn't happen. So we actually have to learn how to change people's emotions. We actually have to learn game. And game to me is attracting women that wouldn't otherwise be attracted to you. Because let's be honest, not all of us have a lot to work with to begin with, all right? So again, flirting, showing interest, that's what allows us to do that. The flirting process allows a girl that would otherwise see you as a friend in the friend zone to all of a sudden see you as sexual potential, right? Rapport and connection, forming that emotional connection. Seduction and sex, okay? All these things, these hierarchy of skills, a lot of us learn out of order. A lot of us just skip it entirely. Oh yeah, I'm good at rapport. How many of us have heard that from our wings? Yeah, I'm good at rapport. Yeah. I just got to learn attraction, and that's it. Then I'm fine with rapport. Then what happens when a girl likes them? Oh, can't escalate. Can't form that bond. Get flaked on. If you're getting flakes, guess what? Rapport and connection is weak. Okay, seduction and sex. Relationship management. Once you have the girl, then what? What do? Do you want to be that guy who supposedly gets the new girl every week or whatever, but can't keep any of them around? You've got to be well-rounded, okay? And these skills, these hierarchy of skills, when we build these make us the complete person. Okay, let's move on. Okay, approach anxiety. Let's look at some real-world solutions, all right? And I kind of skipped over this last time, which is crazy because this is a huge, huge issue, all right? How many of us experience approach anxiety? Raise your hand. Pretty much everyone, right? It's kind of a universal thing. We all, at one time or another, are going to experience that anxiety. Now, a lot of people will read books on it, and there's a lot of theories on that, and like where it came from, and blah, blah, blah. Let's look at real-world solutions. Let's look at things we can do to actually achieve that management of approach anxiety, okay? Because it's not going to go away. I'll tell you right now, that approach anxiety doesn't go away, but we do learn to manage it. Okay, so the first and foremost, open the first set. We've all heard this, okay? All of us have heard this at one time or another. Open the first set as soon as you walk in the venue, and how many of us do it? Almost no one. Almost no one. I'll tell you that because I was in the same boat. Okay, when I was in your guys' shoes, which was not that long ago, I was the same thing. I didn't approach the first set. Oh, sometimes I did. When it was convenient, when I was in a good mood, I did. But did I do it consistently? And was I able to consistently get over that approach anxiety? No, not until I started doing that. When I made up my mind, I will approach the first set every time, come hell or high water. I don't care who it is. 2 girls, a guy and a girl on a date, 2 guys making out. I don't care who it is. I'm approaching the first set that I see. Don't give yourself excuses. Because guess what? If you say, well, yeah, I saw that set, but that's 2 guys, and they're like holding hands, or they're making out. I can't approach them. Then what are you going to say when you see the 2 girls? Oh, they're probably together too. What about the 3 girls? Oh, they look like they're in a conversation right now. Like they look like they're really busy. I can't approach them. Okay, the point being is that if you let one excuse get by, you're going to let every excuse get by. And it's a cascading effect. You're going to consistently let excuses come by. And all of a sudden, you're 45 minutes, an hour into the venue, and you haven't opened one set because you have this cascading list of excuses that are holding you back. So instead, we approach the first set, and we don't let any excuse get in our way. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what mood they're in. It doesn't matter what they're doing. The first set we see, we approach. Okay, second thing, the mindset of opening is interesting because a lot of guys future project. And what I mean by that is a lot of guys think about what's going to happen afterward. Naturally, we think, okay, so I'm going to open. Oh, what am I going to say after that? Oh, what if she likes me? What if she doesn't like me? What if I've approached her before? What if I met her last week? What if she's friends with my friends? All of these what if scenarios go through our head. And they go through our head because our mindset's not in the right place. Our mindset should be in this place right here. The goal is to open. It's not to impress people. It's not to get attraction. It's not to make her like you. It's not to go sexual. It's not any of these things. It is to open. That is your only priority. Until you open, nothing else matters. It doesn't matter what you do in the set. It doesn't matter what the set's like, how they react. It doesn't matter if they're straight, bi, gay, otherwise. Until you open, nothing matters. So your first priority, your first mindset is I will open. I'm going to open, and that's my only thing. And when I get there, then I'll worry about everything else. But I'm not going to worry about that stuff now. That mindset, keep that in your head. That will allow you to manage a lot of that initial approach anxiety. Okay? Next thing, get a sponsor. What happens at Alcoholics Anonymous? Okay, what happens when you're addicted to something, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or anything else? You have a sponsor, right? And why do you have a sponsor? Because there are times of emotional weakness. There are times when you want to drink. There are times when you want whatever your vice may be. There are times when you want to actually do it, right? Now, what happens when we're in field? What happens when we're in field and we start to feel that approach anxiety build up? We start to feel that intense anxiety, that intense fear. And it's right here in the gut. And we think, oh man, I can't approach her. Like, this is super hard. Like, she might do some, I don't know, she might not like me. Her boyfriend might come up and beat me up. We're thinking all these things. It is a time of emotional weakness. So just like in the Alcoholics Anonymous or any other kind of vice, we have a sponsor. So too should you guys have a, and I know it sounds hokey. I know it sounds like, get a sponsor, that's crazy. But how many times have we been in field? How many times have we been in field, we see us that we should have, but we don't do it. We don't do it because we let the fear get to us. We let the anxiety get to us. And I discovered this by accident. I discovered it because my wing and I, when we go out solo, and we did a lot, or we'd be in another city or whatever, when we felt that approach anxiety, and it didn't happen very often, but when we felt that crippling approach anxiety, once in a while, you're going to feel it so bad that I don't care who you are. It's so crippling, you can't move. And when that happened, we would call each other up. And it wasn't even like a pep talk, really. Most of our conversations sounded like this. Oh, hey, Mike, what's up? He's like, hey. I'm like, yeah, I'm in field right now. He's like, well, what's going on? I'm being a pussy. He's like, well, what are you afraid of? I don't know, man. This is hard. There's the logistics are bad. He's like, what are you going to do tomorrow? How are you going to feel tomorrow when you haven't gone after that? When you didn't do it? When you erred on the side of inaction? What are you afraid of? And I was like, you know what, man? You're right. I shouldn't be afraid of anything. This is bullshit. I'm just going to do it. Okay, now obviously that relies on the quality of your sponsor, right? Quality of your friends. And so ideally you want this to be a wingman, you want this to be a coach, you want this to be someone who's going to be supportive, not someone who's just going to talk crap to you, right? So in my long-term training program, I then extended that for all of my students. So whenever they have that approach anxiety, they can call or they can text, and I can walk them through that process. No matter what your situation is, though, you want that sponsor. And it could be approach anxiety, could be escalation, like you said. It could be any of those things. But you know how much easier it is when you're afraid to escalate? Oh, hold on, I have to go to the bathroom. You go and you call your sponsor. It could be your friend, your wing, whatever. You call your sponsor, and he gives that little pep talk, or he walks you through it. And he makes you realize how silly that fear is. Okay? That's the power of having that sponsor. Thinking outside the box, gentlemen. Okay? The other thing, the index card portable coach. And I know that sounds geeky too. Okay? What this is this right here. I want you guys all to take out a sheet of paper, and I want you to write this down. And I want you to fold it up, and I want you to put it in your wallet. And every time you feel that crippling approach anxiety, I want you to take that out, and I want you to read it. And this applies to you guys at home. Write this down. And I want you to read that off to yourself. Because it's going to reframe your beliefs. It's going to make you realize how silly this thing is. How illogical this feeling is. Okay? The index card coach says this. Are you here to get the girl, or are you here to get the skill? And if you're here to get the skill, then why does a rejection matter? Does it have any effect on your life whatsoever? Don't let fear control your life. The fear is an illusion. Don't let illusions hold you back from achieving your goals. Now you write this down, and this is exactly all of these things, all of these tactics that I'm giving you guys, all of these action points, these action lists that I'm having you guys do to sit down when you have a sticking point and to solve them. These are all the things that I did. These are all the things that helped me through this. And I have this exact same thing in my wallet. And when I'm feeling that approach anxiety, I take it out and I look at it. Okay, and sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes it's just that little edge, that little push that pushes you into that. Okay, look up when you guys are done with that. While we're waiting for people to finish up, does anyone have any questions thus far? Sure.
I noticed 3-second rule isn't on the list. Would you recommend that, or do you think it's not very
Why would you give yourself 3 seconds? Don't give yourself 3 seconds. Okay. The reason it's not is because when you approach the first set, you build momentum. After you've approached the first set, do you have approach anxiety before you've approached anything, or 7 sets into the night? No one has approach anxiety then, right? You've just hit 7 sets in a row. Okay, unless there's some extenuating circumstance, you have it at the beginning of the night when you walk in. 7 sets into the night, you're like, I can do this in my sleep, right? So 3-second rule is great, but I don't even advocate waiting 3 seconds. Don't wait anything at all. Go in immediately, first set. And once you have that momentum established, you realize everything else after that is easy. It's all downhill from there. Okay.
So I buy into the same thing you're talking about, because that's kind of just specific to like going into a venue and the opening. How would you like apply it to just like your life? Like I'm walking down the street a lot of times. I'm like, oh, there's a cute girl, but I'm not at a venue, so that's my excuse.
Boom. As soon as you see it, right?
Right.
And especially if you're going out at the beginning, you're going to go out 2-day game, right? Especially if you go out 2-day game, as soon as you walk outside of the house, talk to people. Talk to people walking to your car. Talk to people as soon as you park the car. Talk to everybody. Those are your first sets. So that by the time you see, remember, day game is hard to find sets. Unless you live in New York City or a place where there's a huge number of people in one place, you can't just turn set, right? It's hard to find them. So you got to be ready when they're there. You have to be already warmed up. So you talk to people, everybody you come across. Okay? A lot of guys in my long-term program have an assignment, and they have to talk every day, 7 days a week, they have to talk to 5 new people. And it could be simple as someone in Starbucks. Hey, what's up? How's your day going?
I guess what I'm talking about more is like, if I'm in that mentality, like I'm going out to day game, I
Okay.
can do it. But like if I'm just walking around my daily business, I'm like, oh, I'm doing something else.
Okay.
If I see a cute girl, I'm like, oh, but I'm not doing that. I'm not day gaming. I'm just doing something else, and that's my excuse for not going. Like, how would you suggest anything?
Okay, first off, be warmed up all the time, right?
Okay.
If you're talking to everybody, you're always warmed up,
Right.
correct? So make that a habit. You're talking to everybody. Now you're warmed up, and you have that much more of a push to go do that, okay? Second thing, understand the excuses for when they come, which is why we did a lot of those drills. Right. To recognize when something is coming up and it's an excuse holding you back. Okay, recognize that's an excuse and realize this is holding me back from going after what I want. Last question.
Is it equally effective to put this in our phones?
This one right here? I would say put it on an index card or on a business card in your wallet. You can put it on your phone. The thing is that a lot of times you don't look at it. Okay? In your wallet, when you open up your wallet every time, you see that right there, and it constantly reminds you. Sometimes on your phone, you're like, I don't know where it's stored, or, I got a text message, you get distracted. You just have it there every time. You open your wallet, look at it, and put it back. Okay, let's move on. Okay, now let's look at inner game. And it's something a lot of people haven't touched on. And the thing with inner game is that most inner game isn't practical. And that's what sucks about it. It's ethereal, right? It's in the clouds. It's like, oh, this will help me in theory. But most of it isn't practical. So what we're going to talk about today is practical inner game. The inner game that directly influences you in field, that directly influences what you're doing with your life. Okay? So the first thing is this idea that actions will influence your beliefs. And it's one of the most powerful tenets in this whole inner game thing. And what that means is that the things that you do influence the way you feel about yourself, the things that you think about yourself. I'll give you guys a quick story. I had a one-on-one student, and he was pretty well dressed. He was wearing like slacks or dark jeans. He was wearing like boots, right? And we were going shopping for new shoes. And he took off the boot, and he was wearing white socks. I said, why are you wearing white socks? And he said, I don't know, man. I mean, no one's going to see them. I'm wearing boots. And I said, well, do you think you should be wearing white socks? He's like, well, no, but I'm wearing boots. Like, I can't, like, just pull up my pants and see them. Nobody's going to see these. I said, okay, so I have a question for you then. The guy that you're trying to be, that attractive guy, does he wear white socks? And the student says, well, no, he has good fashion. And I said, then what do you think you are telling yourself every day that you wear white socks? You're telling yourself that you're not him. You're telling yourself that you're pretending. You are poisoning your own belief system. By your actions, you are telling your inner game, you're telling your belief system, I'm not that guy, I'm pretending. And I will never be that guy because I don't want to change these things. That guy does something as silly as wear dark socks. But I'm not doing that. So I'm just going to forever pretend and hope that one day I'm going to magically transform into him. That's the power of your actions. And that's why this whole thing today, this whole talk, is on action. Because your actions are paramount. Your actions are what influence your beliefs. Now, practically speaking, how does that affect us? The things that you do in field, the things that you do on an everyday basis, those things determine how you see yourself, the beliefs you have about yourself. Okay, so earlier you asked about, in day game, if you see that girl and you don't approach, like, how do you do that, right? And you said, oh, it's tough. Like you say, oh, well, like I have stuff to do. There's all these things that come up, right? The problem is that when you don't approach, that one set, let's be honest, experience-wise, that one set's not that big of a deal relative to 4, 5, 6, 7,000 sets, right? statistically insignificant. The problem is that when you don't approach, and you say, oh, you make an excuse. Oh, I have something to do. Yeah, I'm not going to approach. The problem is that now your actions are influencing your beliefs. Now, what are you telling yourself? What kind of man are you telling yourself that you are? Are you a man that goes after what he wants? Apparently not, because your actions directly contradict that. When you're in field and you see a set and you don't immediately go in and you think, let me just think of my opener. Let me just think of what I'm going to say and then I'll go in. If you thought of a great routine after your opener, you went in, you hooked that set, you took them home, that would be more damaging to your inner game than if you went straight up and got blown out. Now that sounds crazy to us in theory, that you could go out and get blown out, and that's better for your inner game than thinking about something great and going after it and actually, quote unquote, succeeding. Now why is that? It's because you hesitated, because of what you're telling yourself up here. Because when you hesitate, no matter what the outcome is, when you hesitate when you go in, you tell yourself, I'm not a man of action. I'm not a man who believes in himself. I'm not a man who goes after what he wants. Instead, I'm a man who second-guesses himself. I'm a man who isn't sure of himself. I gotta think of the right thing to say. And that is much more damaging than anything else that you can do. Okay? Actions influence beliefs. Okay, second thing, approaching direct. Who here started out approaching indirect? Fair amount. Okay, who's still approaching indirect? Okay, indirect being like opinion openers. Who's still using opinion openers? Okay, appreciate the honesty, but stop. Stop. Okay? And it's not that they're ineffective, because if you do them right, they are effective. That has nothing to do with it. It's that they screw up your inner game. Just like everything else that we've talking about. The big problem that we found, and I did indirect for 2.5, 3 years, and the big problem with indirect is not that it doesn't work. It's not that it doesn't teach you dominance, which it doesn't, and that is a big deal. But the biggest thing is that it screws up your inner game. You constantly poison your belief system, and that is more important than anything else. Now we wonder, how are we poisoning our belief system? By asking a question, by asking for an opinion. You do, because most guys, and myself included, we are using opinion openers because we're afraid. We're afraid of showing interest. We're afraid of going out there. We're afraid of putting ourselves out there. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of all these things. So when someone says, you don't have to put yourself out there. In fact, you don't even have to face them. You can just look away and pretend you don't want to talk to them. That way, if you ever get rejected, it doesn't matter. You don't want to talk to them anyway. Someone gives you that temporary crutch, you're going to take it. I took it. I said, this is the best thing ever. I can approach without actually risking anything. I don't have to risk anything. I can just pretend like I wasn't going to talk to them in the first place. That way, if I get rejected, it's no big deal, right? Now, the problem with that, of course, is that what do you tell yourself? Okay, the whole paradigm to indirect, the whole theory is, I am not worthy. I'm not attractive. I'm not good enough. I could never get her. She is so far above me. I could never get her. She is worth more than me. She is higher up. She has more social value. Whatever the case is, we think we are unworthy. And so therefore, because I can't just walk up, because I'm unworthy, I should just sneak in under the radar. I'll just sneak in till before she knows it, I'm in her pants. And I'll just sneak in. Now, tactically, if you do that perfectly, it can work. The problem is that what happens to your belief system when you tell yourself, I'm unworthy every day of the year? Every day, I'm unworthy, I suck, I'm unattractive, no one will ever like me for me. I am a horrible, miserable human being, and that I have to disguise and trick women into getting into bed. What does that do to your belief system? It poisons it, and it screws it up, which is why some of the guys that have the worst inner game are indirect guys. And that's because it's poisoning your inner game over and over and over. And when you do that, you start to believe those things. Just like you can do positive affirmations, guess what? Indirect is negative affirmations. Stop doing that. Okay, the next thing, perception is reality. And a lot of us have heard this, but a lot of us in the real world, in the practical sense, don't know how this affects pickup. Okay, so the first thing is that you will find evidence for your beliefs, and it's one of the strongest tenets in practical inner game. That means no matter what you believe, no matter how crazy it is, you will find evidence for it. And that could mean you believe that we were put here on Earth by aliens. You could believe in invisible magic people in the sky. You could believe in a whole cluster of different things. No matter how silly that seems to everyone else, if you believe that, guess what? You're going to find evidence for it. Now let's take something that we consider perhaps a universal truth. Like let's say Brad Pitt equals attractive. Right? I think most of us can agree on that. Now let's say Brad Pitt believed he was ugly. Let's say Brad Pitt believed he was unattractive. He actually at his core thought, I am an unattractive individual, girls don't like me. What's going to happen with that belief is he will find evidence for it everywhere he goes. And he will dismiss all of the evidence that goes contrary. In the same way that if you ever had that friend who goes to a psychic that thinks the psychic is freaking amazing, and you sit down with her and you're like, he just got the last 9 things wrong. You're like, oh, but the 10th thing was right. What's going on? She's dismissing, because she believes in the veracity of the psychic, she dismisses the 9 things he got wrong and pays attention to the 1 thing he got right. And in the same vein, if Brad Pitt thought he was unattractive, he would dismiss the 9 women throwing themselves at him. And the 1 woman that was say, into black guys, or into short Asian guys for that matter, right? That 1 woman, she wouldn't like Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt would be like, you know what? I'm unattractive. There's evidence right there. Look, that girl doesn't want me. Therefore, I am unattractive. And you know what? He'll do that over and over and over until he establishes this mountain of evidence that he is unattractive. Now, why is that important to us? It's important to us because our perception is reality. Because whatever we believe, we will find evidence for. So if you believe you're unattractive, you will find evidence for it. No matter how true, no matter how false that statement is. If you believe you can never get a girl, if you believe you're unworthy, if any of these negative thought patterns, these beliefs, if you believe them, you will find evidence for them. You will make them true. So what we need to do then is we need to reframe all of these beliefs that don't help us. Everything that we believe about ourselves that does not help us, and whatever we're trying to do, we have to reframe them. So let's take a really, for the most part, clear-cut example. Okay? So statistically, I can find a mountain of evidence that says short Asian men are statistically unattractive to pretty much the rest of the goddamn world. Okay? And there's literally scientific evidence that points towards that. Like they've done massive studies that show that, yes, the rest of the world considers Asian men, especially short Asian men, unattractive. Now, you would think that would be as close as you get to fact. That would be as close as you get to a negative belief, but it's real. And so you say, Fuji, well, if I just believe something else, then I'm being delusional. I'm just not acknowledging that this is ever real. So what we do instead of being delusional, or instead of being negative, the solution is to sidestep, and we look at now that problem from a different point of view. Okay, so it seems clear-cut that short Asian men are unattractive. Okay, but when we really look at it from a different angle, what do we see? We see what makes short Asian men unattractive. Let's look at the core causes, the root causes behind that. Okay, short. Why is short unattractive? Because short is stereotyped with a lack of dominance, with a lack of survival value, right? With a lack of strength, with the emotions of safety. So it's not actually short that's unattractive. It's the lack of those things. She doesn't feel like she can experience that sense of safety with that short guy. She thinks that if she's with that short guy, that he can't protect her, right? That he's not strong, that he's not dominant, all these things. So what does that tell you? That tells you that if you can show her, if you can make her feel that safety, if you can show her that you are not that stereotype, that you are not beta, right? That you are dominant, that you go after what you want, that you are a man of strength, especially in that internal strength, then guess what? Short doesn't matter. Same thing with Asian, right? Is it really the specific characteristics that are inherently unattractive about Asian? When you really look into it, it's not. It's not actually a direct causation. What is it? It's stereotypes. Now, stereotypes happen to be true a lot, and we all know Asian guys that are beta, that don't speak up, that are very passive, that don't go after what they want, that are introverts, right? For the most part, our culture has influenced that. That is correct. However, it doesn't mean that Asian men are unattractive. What it means is that those traits are unattractive. Therefore, if I remove myself from those traits, all of a sudden, I'm a short Asian guy that's attractive. You see how those reframes work? All of a sudden, we looked at the same problem from a different point of view, and we realized there's a wizard behind that curtain. This is not what it appears to be. And our perception, our new, improved perception, is now our reality. Does that make sense to you guys? Yes. Good. Last thing. When you guys are in field, again, practical inner game, you are not your results. What does that mean to us? It means that when you're in field and you get a result, whether it's good or bad, that has no impact on who you are. If a girl likes you, that doesn't mean you're more attractive. If a girl doesn't like you, it doesn't mean you're unattractive. If you get a great reaction or a negative reaction, it has no influence on who you are. All it means is that you made some mistakes or you didn't make mistakes. You did well or you didn't do well. When a pro athlete wins a championship, does he believe, or when he makes a basket, or when he does something, does he believe, oh, I am higher worth now. I am a better person now. I am worth more in just ethereal quality because I made that shot. No. There is a separation between his skill or his sport and how he is and who he is. And that same thing we have to apply to pickup, because so many of us are reliant on the expectations and the validation and the outcomes of our interaction. You are not your results. Which means if you blow every set, that means absolutely nothing to who you are. And if you hook every set, it means absolutely nothing to who you are. It is simply a matter of how you performed. Simply a matter of, did you make mistakes or did you not? Did you do well or not? Okay, let's move on. Okay, fashion fundamentals. Let's look real quick at fashion because not a lot of people take a look at this, okay? First things first, the fit, absolutely critical, and the vast majority of people don't get fit right, okay? In a nutshell, this is how fit works. If anything on any article of clothing on your body is remotely baggy, and I'm talking about t-shirts, okay? If you have a t-shirt and the sleeves right here, there's a lot of excess fabric on the sleeves, guess what? It sure doesn't fit you, okay? You know how a shirt is supposed to fit? Like the guy in the blue, okay? Like El Topo's t-shirt. It fits tight around your arms. And if you're not a big guy, you go to the gym and you get that shit tailored. Make sure your stuff fits. Do not spend money on clothes that don't. I don't care what brand they are. I don't care how cool they look. Okay? I spent about $300 on this suit, and I spent about $200 tailoring it, which is retarded when you think about it, right? I spent almost as much tailoring it as I did buying the goddamn suit. Why? Because I would rather have a suit that fits than a great suit or a cheap suit or a reasonable suit that doesn't fit, okay? The most important thing to fashion. Second thing, accent pieces, things that make you stand out. Once you have clothing that fits, right, you have clothing hopefully that's within this century in terms of style, okay? The next thing is you have to make sure that your clothing stands out. And not everything, but one piece, one or two pieces stand out, okay? Something that sets you apart from everyone else. Something that when you walk in the room, there's something different. It doesn't have to be crazy, and it doesn't have to be 18 thumb rings. It can be something little, it can be something big, it doesn't really matter what the thing is, but something to set you apart. Okay, we call those accent pieces. And in interior design, it's the same thing. You have a room full of entirely white. What do you have? A red pillow. They are accent pieces. They bring out the contrast and everything else. Okay. Third thing, stereotypes. This is a big, big thing with fashion. Understand what your stereotypes are. Because you want to trigger the positive stereotypes when you need them, and you want to downplay the negative ones. Now, what would happen if I was an Asian guy and I dressed like a typical Asian guy? Now, that would be great in a computer programming job. Would not be so great in a club. Why? Because of the stereotypes. Because when I go in the club, I'm going to have to work that much harder because as soon as I walk up, there's instantly stereotypes being placed on me. Oh, he's dressed like an Asian guy, like a typical Asian guy. That must mean he's beta. That must mean he's asexual. That must mean he's not going to be aggressive. That must mean we can ignore him. All these negative things. So I have specifically engineered my look to break those stereotypes. In the same way, and I know this can be politically incorrect, but in the same way that when I was in the Marine Corps, I had a boss who was like who was a black guy, but he was like Obama black guy, right? And he was like high up in our structure in the military. Right? And he was a civilian. And one day, and he was just like Obama, right? One day I walked past his cubicle, and I heard him talking to his family. And he sounded more like Kanye than Obama. And I was like, whoa, what happened to the Obama voice? That's totally different. And what I learned in that split second is that he knows what stereotypes to trigger and which ones not to. He knows, and he has a master's degree, right? Guy's very well educated, very intelligent, but he knows that if he talks a certain way, if he acts a certain way, if he dresses a certain way, that he's going to have stereotypes placed on him. And those are not necessarily conducive to his career. And in the same vein, all of us have certain stereotypes. Bring out the positive ones. Guess what? If I'm going to go to a computer type job, then I'm going to dress like an Asian computer programmer. I'm not going to dress like this because they're going to think no one with hair like that is spending any time on programming. Okay? Highlight the stereotypes that you have. Highlight the advantages that you have and downplay the ones that you don't. Okay, let's talk about dominance and leading. Okay, in a nutshell, dominance leading, one of the most important things in the whole pickup, being able to lead. Okay, practically speaking, how do we do this? Okay, the first thing is take on leadership positions at work, among your friends, volunteer opportunities. All of us have opportunities where we can lead, where we can go about things and we can say, you know what, I can be the leader here, I can take charge. But very few of us actually do that. So what I want you guys to do is anytime you have that opportunity, take those opportunities, okay? Socially, lead socially. Anytime, oh, hey, where are we going to go to eat? Don't be that guy. I don't know, where do you want to go, man? Lead, okay? Always be taking the lead. At the very least, make a recommendation. Oh, how about we go eat blah, 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 Chinese, Thai, Italian. Find a solution. And when you get to the restaurant and the waitress says, oh, how many? Don't look to your friends. That's what almost everyone does. And your friend's like, oh, we got 5, okay? Because guess what? He's stepping up. He's leading. If you want to be a leader, if you want to be effective, if you want to be dominant, then you must lead, and you must lead outside of the field. You can't just flip it on when you're in field. Oh, now I'm a leader, now I'm dominant, and then I'm done in field. I'm just going to go back to the way I was. You have to do these things all the time. That is how we change. That's the essence of action. Last thing, commit 100%. This is the core of dominance. No matter what you do, you commit 100%. Whether that's keynote, whether that's opening, whether that's pulling, everything you do, you act as if there is no possibility for failure. You just go 100% with it. You just go 100%, and everything else, you know what? If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. That's fine. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to speed through these really quick. Conversational jiu-jitsu. Okay, these are the drills that teach you never to run out of things to say. Okay, drill number 1, word association. We've all played that game. You find a word, and you find what is associated with it. Oh, red. What do I associate with that? A robin, right? I associate blood. I associate whatever. Okay, you find a robin. What do I associate? Oh, bird. I associate a teacher that taught us bird watching. You do that free association over and over and over in your head. Just like the game that we used to play as a kid. Okay, that word association game. You come up with these topics, and you think about all these things in very rapid succession, the things that it reminds you of. This is the word association game. I know it sounds like this is like, how is it going to help me in field? Helps you because the next drill is a thread-cutting monologue. This drill, you take one topic and you talk about it. I'll say that topic is lights. I talk about how a friend of mine has like the professional lights in his house, and because he's always shooting video. Okay, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start thread-cutting myself. So the initial topic is lights, and I start talking about, and he's always shooting video, so he's got this company, and they do like internet marketing. I don't know if you guys are aware, internet marketing is really, really lucrative. Like, I always thought like the financial whole thing like was really about a business and about like getting a good job. Like, financially, some of the people that make the most money are people who go after what they want. Okay, see how I've thread cut multiple topics over and over and over. So this thread cutting drill utilizes our word association, and it thread cuts over and over and over and over. If you can do that at home, and you can do that consistently by yourself, you can do that in set. And if you can do that in set, you don't run out of things to say. Okay, once we get that, we have the investment value cycling. Okay, that's where we ask a question. Where are you from? We get any generic question. Where are you from? What do you do? We get a generic answer. I'm from California. I am a banker, whatever. Okay, on that response, we do one of two things. We tease, or we say something interesting about it. Okay, so I don't have time to cover that in depth, but remember that. We ask a question, we get a response. We tease, or we say something interesting about it. That cycle permeates the entire interaction. Everything that you do in the interaction, if you're doing things correctly, if you are a natural and you're doing things like that, then you are doing that cycle over and over and over again. Okay, last thing, steering conversational topics. Take two conversational topics that have nothing to do with each other. Exit sign, that's an easy one. Turbulence and sexuality, that's an easy one. Turbulence and Nick Sparks, okay? That's actually an easy one too. You take two topics, okay, that are completely independent of each other, and then you start talking about the first one, and you thread cut like we have. until you get to the second one. And you have between 60 and 120 seconds to get from one topic, completely unrelated topic, to the next one. If you can do that, gentlemen, then you can steer any topic. You can steer any conversation, and I don't care what you're talking about. She could bring up politics, and you can steer that to sexuality. You can steer any conversation. You can lead any conversation, and that drill teaches you to do that. Okay, so again, you guys should be taking notes on this stuff. What I want to see from you guys is I want to see you guys implementing these drills. I want to see you guys doing these drills. Okay, I'm going to skip a few. Okay, so overcoming obstacles. We talked a lot today about action, about seeing these obstacles, seeing these things, and overcoming them. Finding these excuses that are holding us back and going after things, not letting them hold us back. Okay, and we learned that failure is not the absence of success. Failure is the absence of persistence. Failure means that when you get knocked down, you stop getting up again. It doesn't mean you don't get knocked down. You get knocked down again and again and again, and if you continue to stand up, you will continue to be successful. And overcoming obstacles, the process of overcoming those obstacles relies entirely on that facet right there. On being knocked down over and over, on blowing out sets over and over, and continuing to get back up, continuing to go after things, okay? A lot of you guys will hear the words, I can't, in a variety of different things. You might have said them yourself. I want you to eliminate that from a vocabulary. Instead of I can't, I want you to say, how can I? And I want you to think, how can I do this? Instead of simply shutting down and saying, I can't do that. When in doubt, err on the side of action. Okay, so real quick, those of you guys who were here last night, understand that I usually give free stuff away. So this year, I'm going to give away a free boot camp, same as last year, except that this year, I'm going to include one night of in-field training, somewhere around $2,000. The kicker, though, is that I'm not going to give it away here. Kicker is that exactly a month from now, on August 22nd through September 1st, you have 1 week. And you have that week to send me a report of how you have been implementing this stuff that we talked about. You can send me pictures, you can send me videos, you can send me text, you can send me field reports. I want to know how you guys have been implementing. And I'm going to choose the best report that I get, and you guys are going to get a free boot camp. And in this way, the most dedicated guy is going to be the guy that gets free training. Make sense? Okay, last thing. Okay, throughout the whole last hour and a half, okay, we've been talking about action. We've been talking about going after what you want. We've been talking about a lot of these concepts that underlie the fundamentals, how to implement these fundamentals. This is important because, as a lot of you guys started to realize, the vast majority of people in this industry never get good. And it's a sad fact. And I would say somewhere around 95% of guys never get good at this. That means that in this entire room, one of you will get good, statistically. Right? 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, somewhere in that ballpark. That's what you're looking at in terms of people getting good. Now that's sad, okay, and that's sad, and the reason I bring that up is because I want you guys to be aware of the fact that of the 95% dropout rate, that means in order for you to be in that 5%, you have to be willing to do what the 95 are unwilling to do. If you look around the room and everyone else is doing one thing, are you willing to do more than everybody else? If you aren't, then you are by default in that 95%. If you are, or you are changing to become that, that is how you get to that 5%. That is how you achieve success. That is how you go after and you achieve your goals. And so if you guys remember one thing about this whole hour and a half talk, and you only absorb and remember one thing, it is that action. Action is the name of the game. Going out and doing these things. Having these goals and going after them, setting timelines, going after what you want. That's what's going to make you successful. That's what's going to put you in that 5%. I want all of you guys to buck the trend. I want all of you guys to be in that 5%. And I want all of you guys right now, I want you to sign your notes and I want you to write the date. Right now. Write the date and sign your notes. And that signature is going to be your vow. It's going to be your promise to me and to yourself. That all these things that we've written down, we will do these things. We will go after our goals. We will implement these things. Same as you guys at home. We will implement these things. And every Sunday, I challenge you guys, or once a week, I challenge you guys to go back through your notes and to look at them every week. Say, am I doing this? Am I doing this? Continually update. Go through your notes. Read those notes every week. And I'll tell you what's going to happen. One day, you're going to look through those notes, And one day, perhaps in the near, perhaps in the far future, you're going to look through those, and it's going to be like your everyday routine. And you're going to look at those notes, and the pages are going to be torn, the pages are going to be weathered. And you're going to see those notes, and all of a sudden it's going to dawn on you how far you've come. All of a sudden, those goals that you wrote in those notes, it's going to dawn on you. I've achieved those multiple times. It's going to dawn on you how far you've come in all of this, how much you've been able to accomplish by doing all of these things. And it's all of a sudden, you're going to realize all of this stuff, all of this effort, all of this action contributed to me achieving those things. Okay, and you're going to see the date. You're going to see July 23rd, 2010, and you're going to see your signature. And what you're going to realize is that was the day, July 23rd, 2010, that was the day that everything changed. Because that was the day, gentlemen, that you all took action. Thank you. What's that? If we have time.
Yeah, we have time for a couple questions.
Okay. All right, I'll take a couple questions. If you guys have time.
I'm just wondering, can you tell us real quick what your background is and how long you've been? I'm sorry. Yes, I was just wondering if you could tell us what your background is, like where you came from before, as far as where you are now, and
what I would say, real quick, I would say watch the 2009 speech, because I went for like a half an hour on like how bad I was. I had pictures and all kinds of stuff. But in a nutshell, I came from a place, like a really dark place. I came from a place where not only did I not have abundance, I had a massive scarcity. I was 20 years old and I'd never held a girl's hand. I had never obviously kissed a girl, obviously a virgin, right? Complete lack of anything to do with women. I had nothing, right? So I started with this with basically almost on an empty slate. I had no experience whatsoever. And that's what drove me forward, because every step of the way I saw that improvement, okay? But I went into it in depth, so take a look at that, okay?
What was the investment value cycling again?
Okay.
The exercise?
Investment value cycling is that drill where we ask a question, like, where are you from, what do you do, okay? And we get a response, like, I'm from California, I'm a banker, or I work at blah, blah, blah. On that response, you're going to tease, you're going to generate humor from that, or you're going to say something interesting. And if you'll notice, we all say in the community, oh, don't ask questions. Yeah, don't ask questions, that's really bad. Questions are bad, you should make statements. Which is, in essence, right, especially they say don't ask boring questions. Don't ask where you're from, that's a boring question. So we've been hearing this over and over. Now what happens when we go out with our natural friends? What's the first thing they say? Oh, hey, what's up, baby? Hey, where are you from? You're like, wait, how is this guy taking this girl home? That was the first rule we said not to break. And every time, that's what he's doing. Why is that working? The answer is that he's asking that question and he's following up with something funny or something interesting. He's not following up with what we're following up with, which is, where are you from? California. Oh, cool. Do you like California? That's going to get you blown out, okay? But he follows up with teasing, or he follows up with something interesting, and all of a sudden, he's now contributing to the conversation. All of a sudden, he's giving value. All of a sudden, now he's in an interaction. Okay, so what you guys need to do is do that drill by yourself. By yourself, ask yourself, where are you from? Think of a random city, Orlando, LA, New York, and then say, if she said this, how would I make fun of her? How would I tease her? How would I joke around? How would I be funny? Or how would I be interesting? And if you can't come up with something right away, that's okay. That's part of the drill. When I first did this, it took me 20 minutes to come up with something every time. Now you can imagine in field how awkward that is. But guess what? I did this over and over and over. I did this for 15 hours a week for a year. 15 hours every week. Because I'm not fast on my feet. I'm not a guy who's really quick, who's really like witty, and I come up with stuff. So I did this for 15 hours a week. And you know what? After a year, all of a sudden, it appears that I can think of things. Make sense? Okay.
Where are you right now in relation with the dating and women? Are you in a relationship? And where do you see yourself in the future with women and dating?
I did the, so you guys all know where I started from. Once I started to get results, I wanted to try the MLTR thing, okay, the multiple long-term relationships. Mostly because when you start from zero, anything is cool, right? And I didn't want to get like sucked in and settle down when I wasn't ready, when I hadn't had that skill yet, right? So I did the multiple long-term relationships for probably 2 or 3 years. And I did that, and I juggled between 2 and 5. 5 is not recommended at all, by the way. And so it's a pain, right? And so I did that for a while, and I learned how to manage relationships. And I learned how to have a girlfriend, really. Because having a girlfriend is a skill like anything else. And if you don't have practice at that, if you're not actually doing it, then you're probably not good at it. And I'll tell you right now, my first girlfriend, I was awful. And that's why she broke up with me. I just thought, oh, well, we live together. I don't need to hang out with her. Like, we're in the same room. I don't need to, take her out and stuff. That's stupid. Like, I'm always with her, right? That stuff will get you broken up with real quick. Okay, so I learned how to manage relationships. I learned how to manage multiple relationships. And I learned how to deal with the jealousy issues. And I learned how to deal with a lot of these different things with relationships. And there came to a point where I realized, you know what? I really, really like this girl. And basically, I like her enough to where I want to go to the next phase. And that next phase is obviously a girlfriend, exclusive girlfriend, right? And so at that point, I basically, quote unquote, graduated, right? From juggling multiple to going back to one. And it's kind of full circle. Because when I started out because I had broken up with that girl, or she had broken up with me for that one girlfriend, right? And it's come full circle. And in that sense, I feel like the holistic process has kind of come full circle, right? And now I'm back to learning all over again. And in that same vein, no matter what you do, you start off learning, you get better. You know, you're intermediate. Now you're advanced. Now you're teaching other people and everything, and then boom, you're right back to learning again. And that applies to everything that you do. And that's why it's so important to have that mindset of always a student, always learning. That's why it's so important to keep an open mind. And I don't care who's talking. I don't care who's on stage. I don't care if I agree or I disagree. I always forget everything I know. Because just like you guys, I'm learning. And I'm in that continual process of growth. Make sense?
Okay, so you're not in a relationship?
No, so I have a girlfriend now. Yeah. Okay. All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, that's all we have time for. Give it up one more time, DJ Fuji. Well done, man.